Have you ever wanted a printer that could just do everything? Something that was big, fast, could do multicolor printing, and was reliable, relatively affordable, had a heated chamber for high temperature materials, and could basically just do anything you could ever ask for in a 3D printer? I know I've wanted a printer like that for quite some time. I go through a lot of 3D printers, companies send them over to me to review, I get to use them, and then I either keep them or throw them out. For the most part, I don't like 3D printers. I think they have issues. They either take up too much space, it costs too much, it doesn't have all the features that I want. You could say I'm a picky customer. And as a result, I've thrown out, given away, sold, or destroyed a majority of the 40 or so 3D printers that I've had over the last 3 years. But this is something different. Creality sent me this printer free of charge for early review, so I've been using it. I want to get somewhat of a long-term appraisal of what this machine is like. I want to test the durability, the reliability, and all that kind of stuff. And given the short timeline that I have, I'm not able to do thousands of hours of print testing. But I've done over 100 hours of printing on this machine. I've gone through 4 or 5 spools of filament. We've got another 4 kilograms of filament loaded up in here. I've basically been using this machine constantly since Creality sent it to me, and we've tested out some higher temperature and fiber reinforced materials, really stress testing the multi-material unit, having a lot of color changes with these little guys, and I've currently got a massive print loaded up in here. Here's some of the spools of filament that I've run through this machine. Here's a bunch of multicolor prints that I've run. I've basically been using this as a mass production machine. I also did this HueForge Print. This is supposed to be a symbolic and artistic representation of what's happening in the 3D printer market right now. We've got this little green spaceship which represents the Creality logo, destroying the panda over here. So yeah, that's just a little bit of my artistic expression that I was able to achieve with this machine. But this thing is excellent at doing HueForge prints because you can change colors out and you've got a really large build volume. This is nearly a maximum build volume sign that I made. This was just with traditional CAD. I did all the material assignment and coloring using Creality Print, and that was a pretty easy process. But you can see here, it says to subscribe to Nathan Builds Robots, the definitive source for 3D printer news. Make sure to like the video and share it with everyone. Make sure to share this with all of your Creality fanboys, but also your Bambu Lab fanboys, because sometimes I like to see them get salty. This is an example project of how I use 3D printing. I have an engineering background and I like to design and build stuff. So having a 3D printer that can produce large parts like this is really helpful, because I can make a half-scale prototype or a full-scale prototype. You can see this is my little polar rotary bed here. I've got the actual parts that will be attached to this machine bolted in place, so I can do fitment testing. I can see how am I going to run the wires. I can evaluate the stiffness of this machine, so I can like grab it and bend it and twist it and see which parts are flexing, where I need to add reinforcements. Just being able to do full-scale prototyping like this is really nice. This kind of thing can help save you a lot of money, because if you're designing a machine, let's say you're doing product development, you can print out your exact CAD models and see if there's any issues before you have them made in metal. This is going to be my next project. There's a lot of innovations packed into this little machine. Basically, you can see it's quite small, but it can print objects that are larger than itself. And if you need help understanding how that works, make sure to subscribe and check in the future once I've got the full working prototype of this going. It's got a little forklift mechanism, and this can go up higher than the height of the printer. That's the reason why I want a machine like this that can do engineering materials, that can print full-size replicas of parts. Being able to do this and add this to my prototyping workflow is hugely valuable. Now, once I've gone through a couple iterations of the CAD model, I've printed them out using my Creality K2 Plus over here. The next step is to get the part made out of metal. And to do that, I'll use today's sponsor, JLC 3DP. If you need to get your parts made out of metal, whether that's metal 3D printing or CNC machining, I'd highly recommend checking out JLC 3DP's services. I use them personally for a lot of my projects because they come in with the best prices. And if you need to get 100 of them made, they can do that. If you just need one made, they don't do a huge surcharge for making one part. If you just have one part made, it's actually one of the most affordable out of all the vendors that I've worked with in the past. So huge thanks to JLC 3DP and JLC CNC. I even use their PCB manufacturing service. So if you need to have any serious parts made, I'd highly recommend checking them out. But anyways, let's get back to the K2 Plus. Taking a look at what we've got printing right now, we have this large Batman mask that I colored in Creality Print. It's got 4 different colors assigned to it, so the majority of the helmet is going to be black. Then I've got white, green, and red accents. And this is a very detailed model. It's using almost the entire build volume. Unfortunately, I didn't realize I need to get this video out in basically tomorrow. So I fired this print up and didn't look at how long it was going to take. So yeah, it's not going to finish by the time I publish this video, but maybe I'll post some pictures of it online when it's done. I've got some close-ups of the first layer going down. It went down extremely well, so I really doubt this thing's gonna come detached. And everything that I've thrown at this printer, it's been able to handle with flying colors. The other really nice thing about this machine is you can plug in any USB flash drive. You can use SD cards, micro SD cards, USB drives. So yeah, that's one of the things that I really liked about this machine is how easy it was to use in the offline workflow. Even when I was starting up multicolored prints, it was super easy to do. Previously, when I was trying to run my P1P with my AMS unit, it just really confused me because I'm like, okay, I have to get this little micro SD card, plug it into the machine, and use this crappy little 80s TV remote control style interface to try and get it to work. All machines should have a touchscreen at this point in time. These aren't that expensive and they make the printer a whole lot easier to use. So I'm glad we have a nice touchscreen on this machine. Right now I'm not using any of the wireless workflow for this. I'm just doing it completely offline. That's just kind of a habit that I learned when I was doing engineering work, is that you don't want to send things over the cloud. You basically have training modules being like, don't send it over the cloud because then we're going to lose the IP. So I'm a little paranoid like that, and I print everything offline, and the offline workflow on this machine has been excellent. When I plug a print in and I start it, it automatically maps the nearest color to the printer. I'm not sure how it does that. It must have some kind of internal logic to be able to do that. It'll automatically assign the red to print the red stuff and the black to print the black stuff. There must be something going on in there, or I've just been getting lucky and it's been lining up like that. And then if you want to reassign colors, like I did with these little guys, I wanted to switch from printing red figurines to green figurines. All I had to do was tap the red color and remap it to the green spool of filament. In terms of the CFS system, I guess you're hearing it right now. One downside of it is it's kind of noisy. It's louder than the machine itself, so I like really quiet machines. And when I want to run this machine more quietly, I'll attach a spool to the side here and it'll just quietly feed material into the machine. The actual motion system and fans and stuff on this machine are really quiet, so it barely makes any noise. But then you got a lot of added noise from this and the material wipe and purge bucket flapping around in there. It's got some little pads up at the top that apply pressure downwards onto the spools of filament. Basically, I think the logic there is they don't want to just rely on gravity to hold those spools of filament in place, so they have some little rails up top that push down on the filament to make sure it doesn't come loose inside of this machine. I could imagine some users doing a mod where you install some little roller bearings up there so that everything slides a little bit more easily and you don't have to worry about these wearing out over time. But in the hundreds of hours that I've been using this printer, I don't know if I've printed 100 or 200 hours, it's been working just fine. Over here on this spool of filament, this is actually a cardboard spool from everyone. A nice little touch that they've done is they coat the cardboard spool in a thin layer of paint or epoxy on this outer edge so that it works inside of this without fraying or coming apart. That's pretty cool. I guess other filament manufacturers could start doing that to make their cardboard spools compatible with multi-material units like this. When I was printing out my little Amongus statues, I had 30 loaded up into a print bed, but I could have easily expanded that to 60. Basically, that would be able to print in about 22 hours. So 60 parts in 22 hours, that's quite a rapid speed of production. And if you're running your machines that way, you just have to do one operation. You empty the machine out, load the tray back in there, press start, come back the next day to another 60 parts. So if I was running a print farm, I'd really appreciate that large build volume. Also, when you're doing batch printing like this, the machine gets more efficient the more parts you throw into a tray. Basically, the amount of color changes that it has to do is the same whether you're doing one part or you're doing 100 parts. So by loading up this tray with tons and tons of different pieces, you're actually reducing the amount of material waste that's lost through the purge system in the back, which just poops out plastic. If you want to see how print speed affects print quality, this was printed at the standard speed profile, which is quite fast. The print quality looks pretty good. I will note that these little nubs on the backpack are a little smoothed out from the input shaper because the machine's trying to move really fast. On this one, I slowed the machine down 50%, so it's moving a lot slower, and you can see these little nubs are a lot more pronounced and higher quality. So you can get a bump in print quality if you slow the machine down. However, I wouldn't say that the normal speed is lacking in print quality. Also, Creality threw in a really awesome feature on this machine that they didn't have to do. They didn't have to do any of this, but they decided to give you every type of feature that you would want on this machine, and I used it to print out this little prop knife. It's just a prop. This is made out of ABS with a glass fiber reinforcement. This particular stuff is from Soraya Tech, and I looked at the stuff under the microscope and it looks pretty nice quality. And look at this, look at that, it can stab right through some things. So yeah, I mean, I don't know why you would need a plastic like this. Like, this just seems unnecessary, but you know, you can print higher grade engineering type materials with this machine. Ka-cha! Here's some unfinished parts. I didn't do the best job of cleaning these up or removing them from the build tray, so I've got a little bit of extra brim material on these. As far as I can tell, it printed these really nicely. There's no warping. You can see these two are perfectly flat against each other. I actually flipped the tray over and printed on the back side, so I have a smoother finish on the back. So in short, this machine does everything that I want a machine to do. It's very efficient, it's very effective, it's easy to use, it's reliable. It's been getting everything done just flawlessly. And I've had a couple opportunities to take a look at this machine. Creality was presenting it at a trade show in May, and I was taking a look at it then, and I was like, oh yeah, everything looks nice, but none of that matters if it doesn't print nice, and I'm not going to be able to assess that here, so whatever. And I walked away. But now that I've got this in my office and I've been able to actually use it, I can confirm this thing is completely awesome, and it's doing a great job of everything that I've been able to throw at it. Could I recommend this machine? Absolutely. Definitely could recommend this machine. They were running a pre-sale on this machine about 4 months ago, and I didn't have a lot of faith that it was going to be awesome, so I didn't really push it. I wasn't like, hey guys, look, it's a great deal. You can get one for 30% off, just because I didn't have the information that I have now. If I knew that this machine was as good as it is, I would have definitely been recommending it. Fortunately, they're opening up more pre-sale spots, so I think November 11th, that's like this Chinese thing of the 11/11 sale. They're going to be accepting more pre-orders for this, and I definitely could recommend it for that. It remains to be seen if Creality can produce this at volume and have it still be reliable. The machine that I have is excellent. It's great. I would definitely pay the MSRP for it, but if they have production issues, you know, that's always the risk you take when pre-ordering a machine like this. However, there's no obvious design flaws on this machine, and it seems like Creality have really paid attention to detail and got a bunch of stuff right in order to make this machine as good as it can possibly be. And honestly, I'm just going to call it right now. The Creality K2 Plus is the printer of the year for 2024. That's right, everybody. Printer of the year status. It's that good. Now, last year, I recommended the P1S as the printer of the year. A lot of people say that I'm a Bambu Lab hater. I do think they make great machines. However, this Creality K2 Plus outclasses it in basically every metric, and it's a completely awesome machine. This is the new king of 3D printing for 2024, and yeah, it's just a really awesome machine. What can I say? Hundreds of hours on this machine, 4 to 5 kilograms run through the printer. The thing just works. It just works, everybody. It just works. Best printer I've ever had, best printer that I've ever used, and I'm just going to keep using this printer. I'm not giving it away. I'm not throwing it off of a balcony. I'm just going to use this machine as my primary printer for the foreseeable future. It's that good. And also, the fact that the Creality CFS system just works is a little fishy to me. Like, honestly, the biggest complaint I have about this machine is it's unbelievably good. Like, we've seen Creality launch a lot of products in the past where it's like, okay, yeah, but you gonna fix that extruder issue? Yeah, it's an awesome printer. I'm very happy that Creality sent this over to me. Most of their printers they send me, I'm like, okay, cool, let's make a video. These are all the features. All right, next. This one, we're keeping it for a long time. You're gonna see a lot of projects made on this machine. I'm a Creality fanboy now. Let's do it. I was really losing faith in their ability to pull something like this off, but they really did it. So I'm happy about that. So you might be asking the question, who is this printer for? Well, I would recommend it for any type of workplace or educational environment where you just need like a simple printer that anyone can use. Very approachable, but with extremely good capabilities. It has a great offline workflow, so if for whatever reason you don't want to or can't connect your printer to the wireless network at your home or office for security or just practical reasons, being able to do everything just through an SD card is super easy on this machine. I've been able to get my prints running, reassign colors, download the time-lapse files for all of this, all completely using the offline workflow. And this thing is based on Clipper, so you've got a great web interface if you want to do that stuff as well. Also, since Creality has been very friendly to the open source community, and they've open sourced most of their designs in terms of the hardware and software, you'll probably be able to load a completely different version of firmware onto this machine if you really wanted to. Everything on this machine just worked, and I think Creality delayed the launch of this product to make sure that everything is working. I think they're finally starting to realize that if you push a product out too soon and people have bad experiences about it, that completely poisons the brand. But on this one, they're taking their time, they're making sure to launch it right, and I'm really looking forward to this era of Creality where they actually release well-executed printers that are professional quality and just work. And I think that's what we're coming into with the future Creality. So I'm really looking forward to that. So if you're doing large prints or you need a fast printer that'll have quick turnarounds, if you're using materials that require a heated chamber, whether that's just higher temperature materials like ABS or polycarbonate, or if you're using some engineering grade materials like this glass fiber reinforced ABS, or something like this Fibron filament from Polymaker that's got insane stiffness. This printer has a hardened steel nozzle. It's got a chamber heater, so it can print parts using these insanely high-spec materials. So you can make all sorts of stuff with this machine. And even if you just want to print little toys or figurines like this for your Etsy shop or whatever, this machine can do that as well. So it's just extremely well-featured. It can do basically anything you need a 3D printer to do. And yeah, just really great stuff. Creality hit it out of the park with this design. Now, I haven't tested it on this machine, but using my previous machines that are running Creality's version of Clipper, it's been very easy to manage multiple printers. So if you had a print farm, you could have a list of all of these things loaded up there. You can send out batch jobs to get tons of parts made. Like, this thing is going to be just as good in a print farm as it is in an engineer's prototyping lab. It just allows you to do all sorts of stuff, unlocking this larger build envelope. And what I like about Creality as a company compared to some of the other companies that they're competing with is that they're a lot more friendly to open source. They're like, hey, here's the firmware of the machine. You want to do something crazy? Go for it. Versus other companies, they're like wanting to close source everything, not allowing people to install the mods that they want to install. For instance, if I wanted to put a completely different hot end on this machine, let's say I wanted to install an aftermarket hot end with a huge melt zone to really beef up the speed and the temperatures that this machine is capable of, you'd be able to easily do that because you can just change the clipper configuration, you can attach different stuff in there, and like, it's just really a modder's dream to be able to start with a platform like this that's got such a good motion system, such a high quality frame, and a chamber heater and all these great features built into it, but you can also upgrade it if you feel you need to. Now personally, I don't feel like I need to upgrade this machine because it's doing everything that I need it to. But in the future, let's say 2 years down the line, there's some great advancements in extruder or hot end technology. On a machine like this, you'll be able to easily retrofit that technology onto this machine to basically future-proof it. And a lot of the improvements that Creality have made to their version of Clipper, if they share that source code with the 3D printer community at large, then those improvements are going to be rolled out into a bunch of open source projects. Like maybe someone makes their own version of this Creality CFS and adds some improvements to it. Since Creality is open sourcing all this stuff, well, the hardware and software, then you're going to see more innovation and more options for machines of all different price points, and it's really got that open source feels good mentality. So I'm going to wrap this video up by talking about some of the cons of this system in its current state, as well as some of the competitors that you might be considering as an alternative to this K2 Plus. So let's talk about some cons. I mean, I'm very positive about this machine overall. I adore this machine and all that it can do. Just look at this, it's awesome. But some of the cons are Creality Print is a very new software package at this point. They redid a lot of the work that they've done on their previous versions of slicers, and basically they abandoned all of that work and are porting as much of that as possible into a version of Orca Slicer. So Creality have made their own version of a slicer based off of Orca Slicer or Bambu Studio, I'm not sure exactly which one. But that's how they were able to get all these multicolor capabilities in there. I found it to be pretty easy to use. There's a couple bugs that I've noticed in the software, but nothing that really held up my workflow. And I've shared those with Creality so that they can work on improving those. Fortunately, a software package that runs on a separate device is the easiest thing to upgrade as time goes on. So, you know, they're going to continue to improve that slicer, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. The other downside of this machine, and I really hate to say this, is it's unbelievable. Like, nobody's gonna believe that Creality made a machine like this. Looking at their previous machines, it's like, wait, you're telling me that this machine just works? Like, I hardly believe it myself, but I have the machine here and I've been running it for days on end, and I can assure you that it works, at least in my office. I don't know if there's some kind of magical force field in here that makes Creality printers work, but this thing has been running really well, and I think if you picked one up, you wouldn't be disappointed with it. The other downside, I guess, is that there's a little bit of limited availability right now. So because this is a new product and they're ramping up production on it, it's not just something that you can click buy and have it at your house the next day. I think you end up getting on a pre-order list. Within a couple of weeks or months, they'll catch up with their backlog and they'll just be shipping these things out. One of Creality's expertise is mass production of 3D printers. I mean, they were one of the first companies, if not the first company in the world, to produce over 1 million 3D printers in a year. So Creality is very good at mass producing 3D printers, and I guess we'll see how long it takes to get the backlog to catch up with the orders until we get to the point where you can just buy these things. I guess one of the other downsides is this machine is quite heavy, so if you're a smaller framed person, or if you have a machine that you're planning on moving around a lot, then this might not be the best machine for you. You probably want to go with something a little bit smaller. For me, since this machine is working so well, I'm just going to leave it right here on my desk and be cranking out prints with it, so it's not really much of an issue. In terms of modifications, I actually took this bottom panel out to see what was down there, and I never reinstalled it. So I just kind of like having this storage area in the bottom of the printer. You got to be a little bit careful with that because you don't want to have piles of junk building up in there. But, like, you know, there's just some like little brackets and stuff and spare parts and tools that I leave down there. So in terms of mods, there you go. I've modded. That's my first mod on the machine. 0 nozzle clogs, 0 failures to feed filament, 0 print detachments. Although I will say I had one print that was almost a failure, but it was pretty much my fault. Basically, I had finished printing these and I left a bunch of this material, this brim material, and just gunk on the bottom of the printer. And I was like, let's just start up the next print. And on that next print, it finished, but the layers was starting to peel up because, you know, I had a bunch of crap on the build tray. So that was just my laziness that was almost causing a failure there. That print finished up and I just reprinted it. I flipped the tray over, wiped it down and reprinted it, and everything worked fine. That's the thing. This thing's unbelievably good, and I guess you could consider that a downside. Because I foresee a lot of people having hesitancy about picking one of these printers up because they can't really believe what they're seeing on the screen right now. But I mean, that's just something you're gonna have to get over. This machine's awesome. I'm gonna keep using it because I really like it. I think it's a great printer. And I have the pleasure and the fortune of having access to this machine. So yes, very nice. This printer doesn't exist in a vacuum, so let's talk about some of the competitors. We've got some other machines to consider from Bambu Lab and PRUSA that you might want to get instead of this machine. So let's go over those options and kind of evaluate which one would be best for you. Now, the K2 is very similar to Bambu Lab's X1C printer. However, I think they've improved it in pretty much every way. It's got a chamber heater. It's got a higher temperature hot end. It's got better part cooling. It's got a better build surface. It's got a better frame that's more solid. It looks better. I mean, there's so many things that they improved on this machine that to just call it an X1C clone, I think is a little disingenuous. On paper, this thing is certainly better than an X1C. And in terms of the user experience, I've used an X1C, I've used this machine, I've used a bunch of other printers. The user experience on this thing is really good. And the fact that you can plug in regular USB drives, it's like, whoa, who would have thought you can just plug in a convenient form of media to transfer your files? You didn't have to go through the cloud. And I think Bambu Lab sees the writing on the wall. This machine is better than an X1C. I think they'd have to be blind to not realize that. So they're running massive discounts on their X1C. So if you're really a Bambu Lab fanboy and want to pick one of those up, now would be a good time to do it. They're on sale thanks to your buddy Creality over here. I mean, comparing this to the X1C, really it's no contest. This machine has a chamber heater. It's got better specs in almost every way. It's got 2.56 times the build volume of the Bambu Lab printers. That's like over twice the amount of volume to be able to print out awesome giant stuff. You can print out big signs like this. Like, having that extra build volume is great. And if I was to build the same prototype using a smaller build volume printer like the X1C, it would take twice as many parts. I'd have to print these in multiple pieces and then assemble it together. Versus with this, I can just print out the full-size CAD models because I've just got that much space on this 350 by 350 build tray. But I do like to root for the underdog, and I am open to doing some charity work. So Bambu Lab, you have my contact information. If you need some help shilling your 3D printers, just let me know. We could work something out. We could leak something out too if that would help. Another reason I'd get the Creality K2 Plus over anything from Bambu Lab is the overall philosophy of the company and their openness to open source, their contributions to hardware and software development, and the openness of this entire system to be able to build upgrades around it. That's something I feel like Bambu Lab is kind of getting around to. They're allowing more partners to be able to do third-party upgrades for their machines. But Creality, from the start, they've always been the brand that's the best for modding. You can throw whatever parts and hardware on here that you want. You can throw whatever firmware you want at these machines, and they give you all the tools and the files to be able to do that. So that's something I really like about Creality as a company, and why I continue to support them and use their products. And in terms of a machine that's going to be a great platform to do high-performance modding, like setting some speed records, making absolutely giant versions of printers that can crank out material and do all sorts of crazy stuff, I think you'll have a hard time finding a better modding platform than this K2 Plus, especially once they open source all the files so that you can basically change whatever you want about this machine. Maybe I'm just biased, so if the Bambu Lab fanboys out there can let me know in the comments in what particular way the X1C is better than this machine, then let me know in the comments. I would love to hear it. Is the X1C better than this machine? No, it's not. But if you have delusions that you'd like to share with me of why you think the Bambu Lab printers are better, let me know. I want to know. Tell me, please. Okay, and the last printer that I think is very relevant when looking at this printer would be the PRUSA MK, no, not the PRUSA MK4, the PRUSA XL. I don't have an XL, I have an MK4. I've been enjoying using it. But the XL is their larger format printer that's a lot more similar in size to this K2 Plus. So that one has a 360 by 360 build area, so it's slightly bigger, and instead of using a AMS style multi-material system like this up top, they're using a multiple print head design. So you can get up to 5 different materials using multiple print heads, and it basically changes which print head is active to switch colors and materials. Now, your advantages with that system are, well, you've got that 10 millimeters of extra space, but honestly, I think this build area, you could extend it a little bit with some tricky modding. Like, you could go into Clipper and just tell this printer that it's bigger, and it could probably do 360 by 360. But the bigger improvement that you get with the PRUSA machine is you have much less material waste. And let me just show you what I mean. So this is the pile of poop that's building up underneath my printer. It's quite substantial. And that is a major downside of this type of multicolor system. When it changes colors, since it's using the same hot end for everything, it has to flush all that material through before it can start printing with a different color. With the PRUSA XL, since they're using different print heads for each material, it's much easier and there's a lot less waste when you're switching materials. So if you're doing a lot of large multicolor prints, it still might make sense to get the PRUSA XL. And despite that machine being significantly more expensive, you're supporting a company that's based in the EU, which if that matters to you, then that's a great reason to get it. Also, PRUSA has been moving some manufacturing to the US, so you know, if you like supporting US/EU manufacturing, could be a good option for you. And also, it's much more economical with the material. So instead of having buckets of material poop and waste at the end of your print, you're having much less waste. It's going to cut down that waste by probably 90% because you're not having to purge all the nozzles out every time you do a color change. So yeah, if you're doing a ton of multicolor printing, then eventually I think the economics of it will catch up to the point where you're saving a bunch of time because you're not having it sit at the back of the machine on the toilet, pooping out all the filament. And also, since you're not purging all that filament, you're saving your precious spools of filament and you're not wasting them. Another big reason to go with a PRUSA machine is they tend to have better print quality in terms of the reliability and the strength of the parts because they do a lot more testing with their own materials and make sure everything's like really nice. And the last reason you might really want to go with the PRUSA XL is the multi-material capability isn't just for multicolor printing. You can also mix things like TPU and ABS and PETG, soluble support materials and carbon fiber filament. Like you can blend all sorts of different materials that are difficult to do on a machine like this. You can even do TPU, which like on a lot of these machines where you have to feed the filament through all these little tubes to get it to the print head, that can be difficult with a flexible filament like TPU. But on the XL, it should be able to handle that no problem. So I do think there still is a reason why you might want to get an XL. Oh, the last thing is if you're printing really expensive material, like some of the carbon fiber support material can be $800 a kilogram, then not having to purge that and waste it is going to end up saving you a ton of money. So that's another use case where the XL might make a little more sense. However, where this K2 Plus pulls ahead compared to the XL is for all your more standard type of printing. Like these prototype parts that I'm printing that are just a single color. This machine can do it very quickly and for lower cost. Also, it's got a full enclosure and a heated chamber, so if you want to step up to higher temperature materials like polycarbonate or ABS, you'd be able to do that with this machine, no problem. So I'll leave affiliate links to all of the printers in the description below, including the Bambu Lab one, which is an inactive affiliate link because they went boo-hoo when I said their printers, you know, you might not want to send sensitive information over their cloud because, you know, data security is important sometimes. And that's the reason why I'm not using this machine over the cloud. Bambu, it's not personal. I just don't like the cloud. Do I think the K2 Plus is an excellent printer? Heck yes, I do. This is one of the best printers I've ever used. And very happy to have it in my office. And it's going to stay here for as long as I need to use it, which will be probably several years. And if you want to pick one of these up, I have an affiliate link in the description down below. If you found any of my previous videos over the past couple weeks useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you use that affiliate link to pick yours up. That way it helps support the channel and lets Creality know that they should send more of their cool stuff over to me to check out. So let me know, what do you think about this machine? Do you think I'm too positive on it? You think it needs a couple hundred more hours of testing before I can say it's good or not? Do I need 1,000 hours? We'll get there eventually. It's just a matter of time. But, you know, hundreds of hours with zero failures, zero kind of issues of any sort. That's something. That's something crazy. All right. Well, I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Unfortunately, we did achieve the first failure of this printer. No idea exactly what happened here, though I think I have a clue. If we take a look around back, I was not managing the... Oh, no. No. Basically, I put a little zip tie here because I didn't have... Hold on. I put a little zip tie here because I didn't... I don't know. I just... Yeah, that was a mistake. The zip tie was blocking the poop. Then the poop got backed up, and then it built up inside of here until we had issues. So unfortunately, this giant print is a failure. No. That's all right. We'll get it next time, and maybe we'll do something to not block the poop. We had a really bad case of filament constipation. That's too bad. Anyways, here's a close-up of the little zip tie put on here. Yeah, that's annoying. It was just sitting in the way here enough for the filament to start piling up, and that led to a major backup, which eventually caused the failed print. So yeah, don't block the waste chute because that's going to cause issues for you. It must have just, like, I'm guessing it had one of the pieces land like this. It must have had one of the pieces just land like this, where it was caught up on that zip tie, and then it got all blocked up back there. And, well, yeah, that's not going to be good for this whole system, because then you get a massive clog like this. So, yeah, I can't 100% blame this one on Creality. I will accept, well, probably a majority of responsibility for that happening. But we'll also get the recording off of the printer here. So we'll just download this video and maybe we can see exactly how that little error popped up. So we're gonna go ahead and export this. That's gonna upload this to our little USB drive, and we'll do a little post-mortem analysis and try and figure out what went wrong there. I'm pretty sure it had to be this little thing causing a backup. It was really dumb of me to put this in here, but there's really no need for it, and I could have just, if I really wanted to zip tie something back here, I could have just folded it out of the way like this to allow that poop to just fall out. Oof. All right, painful lessons learned. In terms of the print quality, up until that failure, everything was looking really good. Maybe we'll have to give this another shot later.